Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. Before we start today's episode, a couple of points of housekeeping. Number one, I recognize that it's been a little while since there was last a Survival Guide episode. It is a really nice thing occasionally to be able to take a break and focus on other projects, like all the stuff I've been doing in Minecraft SOS. Whenever I come back to this world after a long period of time, I'm like, suddenly filled with cool ideas of what I should do and recognition that this world is all my own and I have made a very tiny impact on everything so far. There's so much more we could be doing in this world and I'm excited to get back to it. Today's episode is going to be all about the Wither Skeleton Farm. We're going to head back there and complete what I was working on out there in the meantime. The other thing to note is that I'm on my backup PC right now because my other PC had to be sent off for repairs, so it's showing me messages like hold down the left button to destroy a tree. I feel like we're past that point at this stage in the guide. Let's see if we can just do that with a log that's already part of my storage building there. There we go. Okay, that's cleared off that message. So every time you install Minecraft on a fresh machine, it might think you've not really done this before, where clearly I've been around the block a few times by this point. The other thing to note is that if I hit F3 in the top left of the screen there, you will see that we are now on Minecraft 1.20.5. A lot of people might be hesitant to update to Minecraft 1.20.5 at this stage, even though it's only just come out at the time of this recording, because it's made some pretty significant changes to the way some of the back-end stuff of Minecraft works. If you take a look at the data underneath the item name here, you'll see that the tag for this remains the same. It's a crafting table, that's the block ID for it, but underneath that it will say 6 components, where previously it would tell you about NBT tags. And Mojang have been working to restructure the way items are organized behind the scenes. The sort of under-the-hood code of Minecraft has changed a little bit, and so some of the data packs you were using might be thrown off by that. Oh gosh, it's now telling me to craft wooden planks. Hello? I've played this game before. Moving on to this update also means that if we go out into the world now, we should find armadillos in savanna and badlands biomes. There are different variants of wolves throughout the world, so it's going to feel like there are different dog breeds out there to tame, and there's even the possibility of crafting wolf armor. A lot of that stuff is now represented in some of the, I think, either adventure or husbandry advancements here, where there we go, tame one of each wolf variant, remove wolf armor from a wolf using shears, repair damaged wolf armor. Some of these options have now shown up underneath taming animals as a subcategory, so we're going to be able to go and do a bunch of those in future episodes, but for now, let's return our focus to the Nether and the Wither Skeleton Farm. To briefly recap what we did in the previous episode on the Wither Skeleton Farm, and honestly this is as much for my benefit as it is for yours because it's been a little while since I attended to this project, we have buttoned a bunch of the spawnable blocks here in this Nether Fortress, which is out in a Soul Sand Valley. The limited spawns of the Soul Sand Valley make this actually an ideal environment for converting a Nether Fortress into an area for farming wither skeletons, and we've made a platform down here at the lowest possible point between two crossroads, two areas of the Nether Fortress where there's a fairly large bounding box around the structure, and this platform of wither roses basically guarantees that wither skeletons are the only mobs that would be physically able to spawn here. In today's episode, we're going to set up a second platform. We're going to make sure that that area isn't spawnable because this blaze could absolutely wreck my day if it started a fire over here on the platform. But along with the second platform, we're going to set up a couple of lures in the center of the platforms here so that piglins will draw the wither skeletons in towards the center, allowing us to stand below the farm on a platform designed for us to just stand there and kill anything that drops down. And I think that second half of this task is the one that we will approach first. I want to clear out an area below this platform where the skeletons are going to be able to drop down. Ideally, we want to be at least 23 blocks away from the spawning platform so that the skeletons can spawn unimpeded by the player's position. And that means we're going to need to clear out some lava. That wither skeleton spawning platform up there is at Y50, where the lava lake level down here is at Y32. So there's only 18 blocks between that spawning platform and the lava lake, which means we're going to have to clear out a lot of lava for the player to stand somewhere 23 blocks or more away from that platform and allow the wither skeletons to freely spawn there. So my first job is to head back to the overworld and grab the materials I will need to clear out some large sections of lava. Now, our first port of call, the most sensible thing to do, is going to be to grab a bunch of fire resistance potions, because inevitably we're going to end up wading in lava at some stage, and the fire resistance potions are just going to make that a slightly safer task. And if you're concerned about your fire resistance potions running out at any point, you might also want to consider bringing a totem of undying with you, which I know I've got some of in here somewhere. There we go. Popping a totem of undying under basically any circumstances will give you just under a minute of fire resistance. It's not much, but it's enough to save you from just dying in lava again as soon as the totem saves your life. So if you're the kind of player who likes running around with a totem in your hand instead of a shield, then that's usually a good way of making sure that you're not going to die an impromptu death to lava. Also, that was the first time we used a totem of undying in this world, so I got the post-mortal advancement for using a totem of undying to cheat death. That is the first time I've used one in this world, and probably not the last. But typically, because I'm not in a hardcore world or anything, I tend to use a shield. My reasoning being that that helps defend me from ranged projectiles like skeletons or shulkers or whatever I happen to fight, and a shield can save your life multiple times, whereas a totem can only save your life once. Enchanted golden apples will also give you a fire resistance effect for a short amount of time, so it might be worth carrying one of those in case of emergencies, but I think for the moment the fire resistance potions will do. Now, for the purposes of clearing lava, unfortunately, sponges aren't really an option. They don't clear up lava the same way they do for water. There is no lava sponge that does the equivalent of clearing out a large area, and so we're going to have to do this one block at a time. We're going to start off by using gravel. Since it's a gravity-affected block, it will be possible to drop gravel into a box around the area of lava that we want to clear, and we can also use it to clear out the middle if we like, but I think there's a better way of doing that. And that way, weirdly enough, is by using a traditionally sort of flammable block, which is scaffolding. The key to using scaffolding to clear out lava is that it can be placed from one location. You can simply stand here and look forwards and extend the scaffolding outwards, and that suddenly replaced several blocks of lava. Lava will not waterlog blocks in the same way that water does, so you can pretty much guarantee that you are erasing the lava one block at a time if you place scaffolding that way. Of course, if you want to absolutely cram your inventory full of buckets, you can bring back a bunch of lava with you and use it as fuel. But at this point in the series, we've been renewably farming lava here in the dripstone factory, so there's really not much point in stockpiling lava from the Nether when we have it renewably here in the overworld. It's also kind of inconvenient to carry that many lava buckets around with you because they don't stack, so they'll all take up individual space in your inventory and you'll need multiple shulker boxes to bring them home with you. So back here in the Nether, I'm going to find roughly the center of this platform, which is equidistant between these two crossroads. I think that's about here. We're going to drop down on this side and we're going to turn around to look at this pillar here. That seems to be the point at which we're going to be dropping the wither skeletons down through the farm. And so around the outside of here, we're going to create a gravel perimeter so we can clear out as much lava from the inside of that as possible. And that will create our AFK point. Now, one thing to be aware of when you're placing gravel in the Nether over a lava lake like this is not to stand too far out onto the next block, because if the game thinks that you're standing on that block of gravel, it's potentially going to dunk you in lava if the gravel has to fall some. So bear that in mind when you're bridging, and keep a bottle of fire resistance handy on your hotbar just in case. In fact, I think the most important thing here is to stand still while you're placing the blocks, because I have a habit of sneaking back and trying to place blocks as I move, and I think that's what's causing me to step over onto a block that I've just placed as it starts to fall down through the lava. But if you complete this task slowly and methodically, you shouldn't run into too many issues. If, like me, you're in a soul sand valley, though, you might run into a patch like this, where you can hear the hiss of a block being destroyed by lava down there, and that's probably a sign that there is soul sand generating underneath the lava surface. If we dive on down with a fire resistance potion, yep, you will see that there is actually soul sand generating down here, and since soul sand is not a full block, the gravel is actually breaking on top of the soul sand, so we'll need to place these blocks of gravel manually along the bed of the lava lake here, just to make sure that they don't get broken and destroyed by a non-solid block. And now, layer by layer, starting on the edge of the lava lake, we're going to go through and place a bunch of scaffolding, like so. It'll create pillars every so often, which, once again, we have to make sure aren't going to fall on soul sand so that they end up breaking. But once we've established these base blocks, we can walk out along the scaffolding like so, placing it as we go to simply delete the lava from the surface. Now, this is one area where I'll recommend having a lot of disposable scaffolding, because there is very little chance you're actually going to get all of these scaffolding blocks back from the lava itself. And you'll probably need to make sure that you aren't crouching as you explore along the scaffolding, because if you're slightly over to one side and you end up crouching down through here, you're going to get hit by lava pretty quickly. But by laying scaffolding down slowly and methodically, layer by layer around this pillar, we can delete the lava with minimal risk to the player. I think this also amounts to a great reason to have set up a bamboo farm in recent episodes, so thanks to the allays for gathering all of this. Once you've set up the first layer of scaffolding, you can simply destroy that and work from the next layer down. As long as you've established a couple of supporting blocks here and there, it's going to be nice and easy to work layer by layer. For a small area like this, you may even be able to place scaffolding underneath the blocks you've already placed, meaning that you can collect the other scaffolding safely. Just be careful about which blocks you break in the process. So remarkably quickly, we have gotten down to the lowest point here in the lava lake. Just be careful about breaking any of the gravel walls around you. You might want to come back later and replace those with a more solid material, since any gravel you break here is going to be letting lava in from the surface. The most important point, though, is that we now have an AFK spot at 26 or lower, which is the point at which wither skeletons will be able to freely spawn on this platform without getting blocked from spawning by the proximity of the player. And as I come back up here now, you will see that a ton of them have spawned. So as long as we're cycling through the spawns on this platform pretty fast, we should get a very solid supply of wither skeletons. I've cut into the landscape here a little bit where I knew there wasn't going to be any lava, so we could clear a bit more space to work. And we're also going to dig into the ground a little bit here because I will want to install a storage system to filter out the drops into different chests. We'll want a chest for bones, one for coal, and one for wither skeleton skulls. That will also allow us to sort out any of the stone swords the wither skeletons drop and throw those into lava, since we won't be needing them. So I'm going to get that set up first, and I would always advise you to build the killing mechanism before you start dropping wither skeletons down here. Otherwise it's just going to end up a mess, and if the farm is this efficient, the wither skeletons might actually block you from building anything. So first of all, we're going to return these lava clearing supplies to the overworld, and then we're going to get to work building a storage system. So here in the center of this pillar, we have our killing area set up. And it's pretty simple, really. The wither skeletons are going to fall down onto these two slabs here. The hoppers are going to collect their drops from below, put them into a storage buffer just so we can collect up anything that needs to get piped into the storage system. And then over here, we have a bunch of hoppers ready to deliver those items all the way into a storage system where there are going to be coal, bones, and wither skeleton skull chests. And then the final one over here is simply going to take any of those spare items, and a dispenser is going to dispense them into lava. I haven't installed the lava just yet because we need to road test the system and make sure it works okay, but the dropper clock there is going to throw stuff into lava once we're confident that it's only getting rid of the stone swords. Now, however, we have to figure out exactly where the wither skeletons are going to come into this killing mechanism, and that's going to happen from two separate points on this platform. And it kind of has to happen in two separate places because of the width of this platform. As you can see, I'm standing here to one side of this platform, and some of these wither skeletons don't even know I'm here because I'm slightly too far away to be inside of their aggro range. So I'm going to temporarily provide some light to the platform so that we get fewer wither skeleton spawns while I do this, because we need to go and carve two holes in the platform where the piglins are going to be standing. And lighting up this platform is a pretty effective way of stopping spawns temporarily, since wither skeletons, unlike other nether mobs, are actually affected by light level. So at the center of each of these crossroads where I've dug out this little 3x3 area, we're going to drop down into the middle, destroy the wither rose that's sat there currently, and we're going to destroy two wither roses out in each direction from either side. We're going to take out the blocks that those wither roses were standing on so that we end up with this kind of plus shape of holes that the wither skeletons are going to fall into. And then we're also going to remove the three wither roses on each of these corners, because we're going to take out those blocks as well and replace them with walls. I've already crafted some nether brick walls for this, and we're going to place those right here next to the wither roses, but not connected to any blocks. We can't have them sat on top of a block, because when the wither skeletons run in towards the center of the farm, they can actually run along the side of this block here. So removing that block is going to make sure that the walls direct them into this space. We're also going to avoid putting walls attached to these blocks here, because then the wither skeletons would be able to run up onto the hitbox of the walls from the neighboring blocks. So we want to leave a gap there and simply attach the walls to the sides of the wither roses here. Now the central area here is where our piglin is going to stand, luring the wither skeletons in. We're going to have that resting on top of a block of netherrack here, potentially in a minecart, so that their eye line is a little bit lower and they can see the wither skeletons all around them, and the wither skeletons can make eye contact with them as well. We're going to drop the piglin directly in here from above, so we need to bridge out from an area nearby which has piglins spawning in it. There's a nether wastes biome over there that should fit the bill. And then we need to repeat this process on the opposite side over there, since we need 2 points where the wither skeletons will be drawn before they can be collected in the center. Now that we've made these incisions up here, we need to plot out the area where the wither skeletons are going to fall down. And for that, I'm actually going to take down a bunch of the nether bricks from this central column, because we're actually going to remove this. We won't need it, and we're actually going to break out a few blocks here so that the wither skeletons can fall into the central area of the farm. We're going to leave this flat platform of nether bricks with a 2-wide hole in the center. That's where our killing area is going to be, and from the outside of this, we're going to bridge out across the lava 1 block above the layer of lava like so, until we manage managed to build a plus-shaped platform underneath the area where the wither skeletons can fall down. We've done that on the opposite side there as well, and now we're going to take some walls and we're going to build those up around the outside here to make sure that the wither skeletons are guided downwards towards this platform. Once again, these are going to have V-shapes on each of the corners, and we're also going to add a wall here to make sure that the skeletons can't just walk out into the lava and don't get pushed if multiple skeletons fall down at once. This section of wall here we're going to pull out towards the central platform, and then we're going to build up a one-block platform of nether bricks on this side where a piglin is going to be sitting in a boat, luring the skeletons in. Not those types of skeletons, the wither skeletons, and the piglin should not be at risk of harm from any other types of mobs, so we don't need to worry about the skeletons and ghasts that will spawn around here. Wither skeletons and piglins specifically aggro each other. Now, since the wither skeletons will be rushing inwards towards a piglin in the middle, their momentum should always guide them towards the center of here, and we shouldn't need to worry too much about putting up any other walls around the outside. But you might want to do that if you notice the wither skeletons changing direction and falling off into the lava. For now, though, we're going to bring 2 more walls in and connect them to a pad of blocks on this side as well, so that the wither skeletons will be guided in towards a trapdoor here. Then above this side, we're going to build a ceiling 2 blocks up so that the wither skeletons won't be able to get up onto this platform if they're freely roaming around here, and that's where the piglin in a boat is going to sit, luring them in. Of course, to get any piglins involved here, we are going to need to grab a gold piece of armor so that the piglins don't end up aggroing on us, unless you feel like utilizing that aggressive behavior to drag the piglins over towards the farm. But in this case, I'm going to grab some wood and we're going to make a boat. And up here, we're going to look for a piglin with a sword specifically. We're going to try our best to get hold of piglins with swords throughout this, because the crossbow-wielding piglins will be able to shoot the wither skeletons from range, and we really don't want that to happen, otherwise they'll take too much damage before they end up in the kill area of the farm, and they could potentially die from fall damage. So with this sword-wielding piglin captured in a boat, I'm going to carefully row my way over towards an area where I can simply drop down into the Soul Sand Valley biome. Looks like we should just about be able to make it. I think the momentum will carry us down towards the Soul Sand Valley. There we go. And with a quick temporary bridge built out into the center of the farm, we should be able to drop our piglin on this platform. Just going to maneuver him into place, line him up along the back edge of these blocks, and roughly in the center so that the wither skeletons will be drawn in towards this piglin. There we go. He is freshly installed there, and they should not be able to reach him when they fall down, so that's perfect. Now we'll need to get hold of some wood for trapdoors that we can use to trick the wither skeletons into dropping down the hole. We're going to use mangrove wood for this just because of the red aesthetic the farm already has. We might as well continue that idea. And I'm also going to make sure that I have access to rails and minecarts, because we're going to need to transport a couple more piglins and drop those into the farm. I should also note that any piglins we're going to use in this farm will need to be name tagged if they're not in a boat or a minecart. So we're going to grab a couple in minecarts first, but then we'll need to go back for some name tags to make sure that the ones stationed on top of the farm don't end up despawning. But first, let's pop our trapdoors into place like so. That's going to make sure the wither skeletons fall down that hole onto the slabs that I've laid above the hoppers. And up here in the center of the farm, we're going to lay a trapdoor around the edges of each of these netherrack blocks like so, and then one on the inside attached to this netherrack block in the center, creating a 2-wide area that the wither skeletons are going to think they can cross, when in fact they should just end up falling down and onto the blocks of nether bricks that we've placed down there. Those nether bricks are outside of the nether fortress's bounding box though, so they should not end up spawning anything. If they do, we can always lay down some buttons on there to prevent, say, skeletons from spawning from the Soul Sand Valley biome, but they might also be slightly too close to the player since we're going to be standing down there. Now we're going to place a few additional trapdoors up around this here. The most important thing is going to be leaving 4 trapdoors around a central space like this where a piglin in a minecart is going to be sitting. And as you can see, once that wither skeleton saw us, once it caught line of sight of the player, it managed to walk over the trapdoors, fell down into the farm, and was lured in by that central piglin. So amazingly, we actually get to fight a couple of wither skeletons right now and claim their drops, which should prove whether or not our disposal mechanism for the swords is working. There we go. It sounds like one of them got dispensed right there. So if we look down here, we need to check that that's a sword. Yep, there is a stone sword spinning back there. Okay, perfect. So that seems to be working as planned. We have a couple of extra coal and bones in the hoppers here, and we didn't get a wither skeleton skull from that, but we will. The piglin in the center there is perfectly unharmed as well, which is great. Now we need to go and add trapdoors to the other side over there, and then we're going to move piglins into the farm using minecarts. Well, we have another sword-wielding piglin trapped up here in a boat already. I think I've put down some boats previously to capture some of these piglins, and this zombie piglin behind it needs taking out quickly and efficiently, which I can do with a Smite 5 axe, like so. That shouldn't alert any of the other zombie piglins in the area, and now I can drive this guy over in a boat and get him ready to put in a minecart. I made a bit of a piglin diving board for us here, but the momentum should carry us down towards the Soul Sand Valley, and the rails along here should allow us to drop the piglin directly on top of this netherrack block at the center. The real trick is going to be making sure that he gets in the minecart in the first place, but encircling him with the rails should work out fine, and now all I need to do is make sure that I break this boat without him getting out too far. Then we should just be able to push this around, and sooner or later it'll hit an angle where he goes in the minecart. Perfect. He's getting a little bit mad at me for opening and closing shulker boxes, but hey, I do need something that I can use to power these rails. And now with my shield up, I should be able to charge in towards him, push the minecart, and off he goes! And he's just hit the brakes at the top because the redstone signal didn't travel that far. But with that corrected, we should be able to send him off on his way, and he'll make it to the center of the farm, manage to clock a wither skeleton on the way past as well, and he's fallen into that set of trapdoors at the center of the farm where he should now lure wither skeletons in towards the drop. We're going to take down these rails for now so that we can move a piglin to the opposite side, and I might go and make a new shield because this one is painfully low on durability. Time to break out our second sword piglin. There we go. We've got him in the ring, and we should just be able to send the minecart around and nudge him into the right place. There we go. Now pushing him back the right direction should deposit him in the central area of the farm, and the wither skeletons are lining up to take him out, although they're slightly confused by the fact that I'm here, I think. I've just noticed one more thing we need to quickly add to the killing area over here, and it's a barrier on this side as well to prevent the wither skeletons from seeing the player and dropping down into the center of the killing area. And from here I've just noticed another thing that we need to take care of. I need to make sure that there's a roof on this side of the barrier here as well. That way when any wither skeletons drop down here, they aren't tempted to walk over the parapet and down towards where the player's going to stand. But we already have a few wither skeletons waiting for us in the killing area here, and wow, that's a loud noise, and they've dropped a bunch of stuff. I'm wondering if our first skull is going to be trickling through, but unfortunately, it looks like it isn't. Any other coal or bones that we pick up using the farm, we can just drop into these hoppers since they'll be distributed to the chests, which pretty soon I think are going to start collecting resources for us. There we go. Our first bones trickling in now as well. At this point, all that's left to do is remove the remainder of the walkways of the Nether Fortress crossroads, because that will open up line of sight across the entire platform, meaning that wherever they spawn, wither skeletons should get aggressive towards these piglins and find their way towards the middle of the farm. And if all we wanted was one spawning platform, then that would be enough. But I'm going to aim for 2 spawning platforms here, just to double the amount of area in which wither skeletons can spawn, meaning we have to change things up a little bit over the top here and bring in another set of piglins that will lure the skeletons on that platform towards the center as well. But first, I'm going to go ahead and take down all the nether bricks on the surrounding platforms here, then grab a few more materials, and we'll be back to build platform number 2. Hey folks, welcome back. So I've now added a second platform to the top part of our wither skeleton farm here, and I should point out that this section in the middle here where the second set of piglins is going to go is built ever so slightly differently to the one below. Like I do with a lot of farms, I was actually testing this out in creative mode before I came back in here to build it in survival, and what I discovered was that if you build the drop sections where the skeletons are going to drop down identically, they would actually occasionally get too close to that piglin who sat there on the second layer down, and occasionally they'd score a hit, and a piglin doesn't take a great deal of damage in addition to the wither effect before that piglin ends up dying. And it's no good having piglins die in this farm because you'd have to move them in from elsewhere to lure the wither skeletons back towards the center. So instead, what I've done is widen out this hole on the second layer by an additional block in each direction. We've got these W-shaped sections of wall, so there are 5 pieces of wall there instead of 3, which are still designed to funnel the wither skeletons into these individual gaps. But you'll notice that around the central section here, where there's trapdoors which are going to house a second piglin above the first one, there are also additional trapdoors coming out from each side. So the central column of trapdoors is surrounding a block. There's actually a slab there on which another piglin is going to stand. But if you wanted to, you could set up 2 blocks and then a minecart like we have with the piglins down here. Coming out 1 block on each side from that, we have these additional trapdoors. And these perform the same function as the trapdoors here. They're designed so the wither skeletons think there is a solid block that they can walk over. If you take a look at how these fold up, you can imagine a wither skeleton easily walking up onto that to try and get close to the piglin in the center of the farm, but that actually provides both an area that they think they can walk over and instead they drop down, but it also provides a 1-block barrier here. They won't be able to walk over the top of that, and they won't be able to get any closer to this piglin in the center, making it possible for the piglins there to survive when the wither skeletons start to rush in towards the middle. So right now, our goal is to move 2 more piglins into these sections in the center of the farm, and we can do that using minecarts as we did before, or we can lure them in manually. But to demonstrate the variety of approaches we can take here, I'm going to lure them in manually, and I'm going to make sure they're not in minecarts, which means we will need to name tag them. Fortunately, luring these piglins into place is going to be pretty easy. We just need to make sure they are following us and that they fall into the section of trapdoors right there. We also need to make sure they aren't distracted by any wither skeletons, which they will retarget on if they spot any wither skeletons as they are chasing us. But starting with this fella we've got trapped in a boat down here, I'm going to make a very simple staircase up, and he should have no trouble following me up here. The main concern is once we get to this part of the farm, we need to make sure that there are safety rails out to either side. Then I'm going to add 1 additional trapdoor here so that the piglin thinks they can follow me. We're going to add a block on top of that, and we just need to jump this gap, allowing the piglin to fall into the center of the farm. I am briefly going to light this up just to make sure that nothing spawns up here, because we're placing a lot of solid blocks without any additional slabs or anything. But I think up here, basically 1 block up, we're going to put in some guide rails to make sure that the piglin doesn't walk off into the farm. And once the piglin's in here, we can just use the same path to lure another piglin out to that other spot there, and we'll make sure they're both name tagged so they don't despawn. You can set up more guide rails if you're less confident in your piglin's ability to follow you, but it should be fairly straightforward to do this. All we need to do is let the piglin out of the boat in the usual fashion, like so. He'll just be wandering around inside of the rails, which we can open out a little bit. He's already following me a little bit because mobs like to go up into higher spaces. If they want to, they will typically pathfind to blocks that are a little bit higher up in the world. But then I just need to remove my gold armor, and he's going to follow me aggressively. So now we should just be able to run across this little platform here, jump the gap, and if necessary, lure him in towards us like so. And he's already got up onto the rails. Okay, that went a little bit worse than I planned. I can always re-equip my gold helmet if I need to reset his aggression. Let's sneak past, and he's just walked into the farm himself. Okay, no worries then. So we're just going to name tag him Skellybait. That will make sure that he doesn't despawn, and the wither skeletons should run towards him. We'll remove the unnecessary trapdoor here, and with him standing on a slab, he should not be able to hop out over 1.5 blocks, meaning that he'll stay inside this little containment area we've built. I've saved 1 other sword-wielding piglin up here already, and he's not going to get mad at me because I took his friend out in 1 hit. But this should be the last time we need to take our diving board down to the Soul Sand Valley. There we go, nailed it, and we can take this guy out of the boat. He'll follow us up here, and we can get him installed in the farm. Of course, now it's possible to hot swap between pieces of armor on Java Edition. It's going to be a lot easier to bait this piglin along when we're not wearing the gold helmet. All we need to do is create line of sight with him like so. He'll get angry at me, and he can just run straight into the farm. And if this farm was completely surrounded by a Soul Sand Valley or a warped forest biome, that would probably be all we needed to do to have a pretty effective wither skeleton farm setup. But sadly, even though it's been convenient to move piglins into the farm from it, this Nether Wastes biome up here is going to fill up the mob cap in the area, meaning that while we are standing here at the farm, zombie piglins are going to be taking up the vast majority of the hostile mob count in the area, and wither skeletons aren't going to be able to spawn here super frequently. The game is basically going to wait for some zombie piglins in the distance to despawn naturally before it will generate any wither skeletons inside the farm. As I mentioned before, skeletons and ghasts from the Soul Sand Valley will contribute to the mob cap as well, but the Soul Sand Valley will not typically spawn too many of them at once, meaning that the wither skeletons can spawn more freely inside the farm. We just need to take care of that Nether Wastes. And even without doing that, this farm is going to operate pretty well. Like right here, we've already got a bunch of wither skeletons. We're already getting a couple of skulls dropping there, and if we take a look in the item filters here, a couple of skulls already came into the farm whilst I was working on the second platform. But now if I stand here, you'll notice that the wither skeletons are not dropping constantly. We might see 1 or 2 hop into the farm here and there. There we go, there's a couple falling down now, but we're not going to get a constant flow of wither skeletons until we've made sure that some of the surrounding biomes are adequately spawn-proofed. Of course, if you're happy with the current rates of this farm and you don't have the time or don't want to go through the effort of doing that additional spawn-proofing, then you can probably have a little bit of patience and be happy with the amount of wither skeletons that we're getting right now, especially with this being primarily in a Soul Sand Valley biome. But occasionally I like to push things about these farms to see how far they can go, and so we're going to return to this Nether Wastes area, and we're going to bring a ton of buttons with us, along with destroying some of the temporary platforms that we've made here to get the piglins into the farm, which as you can see from a distance here is actually working pretty well. We can switch on the F3 debug screen, and anywhere that the biome registers as Nether Wastes within a 128 block radius of the spawning platforms, we're going to place down buttons on top of each of those blocks. We're basically doing to the biome what we were doing to the structure of the Nether Fortress down there. The main thing is just to make sure that a non-spawnable surface gets put down on each spawnable block within the radius of the farm. You could do this with slabs if you want to. Slabs will certainly save you a little bit on materials, but I prefer buttons because they are harder to set on fire. You don't end up accidentally double buttoning stuff the same way that you can with double slabs. And with a ratio of 1 plank to 1 button, it's really easy to get hold of wooden buttons if you just have a decent tree farm. Of course, another approach you could take is to completely destroy the terrain up here. Netherrack can be insta-mined, so it's nice and easy to tear through with even a moderately efficient diamond pickaxe, but the terrain can be pretty dense in some places, so I'd argue that approach is even more labor-intensive than the process of spawn-proofing this area. But with each additional spawn-proofed area, you will find that the rates of the farm improve ever so slightly, to the point where if you spawn-proofed every available spawnable block in the surrounding area, this wither skeleton farm will become a factory for bones, coal, and wither skeleton skulls. Sounds like it's already doing pretty well though, and we've just had 2 more skulls come in, so our total count is up to 8 so far. Ideally, we want to fill up this filter, which is going to leave 41 skulls inside of there. Of course, this filter system is only small, so if you wanted to just leave 1 wither skeleton skull in here and put 40 items in the neighboring slots, all you need to do is space the filters 1 block apart. The goal there is just to make sure that they don't end up breaking from overflow signal and filling up with stone swords and the like. But we've moved on to the spawn proofing phase, and I think there's really no substitute for hard work in that regard, so I'm going to head off, get some more logs, do a bunch more spawn proofing in this area, and we'll see how the rates of this wither skeleton farm turn out once that's done. And a short time later, there are a lot of wither skeletons that are ready to die in this farm. I saw a couple more skulls going in, and I have basically brought a full shulker box of logs to the nether and turn them all into buttons. So I'm still in the process of spawn proofing, but already the results kind of speak for themselves. We're getting wither skeletons dropping at a much more even, steady pace at this point, and the piglins are up there working in the farm to make sure that the skeletons get down here. Always takes the item filters a little while to process. There we go, we've got 9 skeleton skulls now, which is enough to spawn another 3 withers if we wanted them, but more importantly, the coal and bones have also started filling up, so we have a plentiful, renewable supply of coal and yet another source of bone meal to add to our collection. I might do a little bit more experimentation to see if there is a better way of getting the wither skeletons to fall down this trapdoor, because there is usually one that just lingers on the top here. But there's another skull coming through for us as well, so I'm very excited about having a better supply of wither skeleton skulls. I think it's going to be really nice to just be able to grind out a beacon whenever we want to. So to give you a rough idea, this area up here has all been buttoned. I've stopped buttoning after a certain point because it is still a radius around the player that gets affected, and the further out these go, the more likely they are to naturally despawn on a cycle that will mean that the wither skeletons can spawn in the farm. I've also gone out here and buttoned this island and the adjacent little ruined portal area, and I've done a bunch of buttoning on this side as well. And this is where I plan to continue adding a few more buttons, probably up to the boundary of that crimson forest biome, and that's probably where I will leave it, even though there might still be some spawnable space out there because we're still relatively close to the fortress. There's a bit of a patch down here that might need the treatment as well, but spawn proofing is one of those things that with a farm this effective, you can do as much or as little as you really have time for, and it's just going to be a matter of time and patience will get you a bunch of extra wither skeletons through the pipeline. In addition to that, if we fly out here into the Soul Sand Valley, despawn anything that might have spawned in the Nether Wastes biomes around here, and then make our way back into the farm, we should find that a bunch of wither skeletons are going to spawn freshly up there, and a ton of them are going to end up in the farm, which is where they all sort of bunch together and where I need to make the drop system there a little bit more effective. But that's another really useful trick for just refreshing spawns in the area, getting rid of any piglins that have spawned in the Nether Wastes, and ending up with a bunch more wither skeletons dropping on through the system. So that is where we're going to wrap things up for today's episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide, folks. I'm so happy to have finally gotten part 2 of this wither skeleton farm done, and for the farm to be pretty effective and operational. Thank you so much for watching. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.